Action!
Welcome in, everybody, to the Outer Belt. My name is Chili, and you know my friends to my right
Buttermilk.
and to her right.
Eric.
And all the way across the table over there, it's...
Zucchini bread.
And to Zucchini Bread's right.
Jerry.
And the man in the middle is...
This is Patrick.
Hello, Patrick. How are you today?
I'm doing well. And
Good.
yourself?
Well, you know what? I got some breaking news for you.
Let's have it.
Yeah, the FMCSA panel on
Truck leasing,
truck leasing.
I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I think I read your mind.
You did read my mind.
We definitely didn't
I mean,
talk about this already.
The name of the panel is the Truck Leasing Task Force. Very simple, very basic.
What do you think they're tasked with?
Truck leasing.
They're
Studying truck leasing.
Okay.
Yes.
No, they have to go get
They
truck
are
leases.
actually leasing trucks. Yes.
That's what it
Yes.
sounded like.
So
They're working with Mr. Gambino and
Yeah, exactly. They do a lot of garbage trucks, apparently.
That's
So they were tasked with studying the truck leasing, the lease to own, lease purchase programs that a lot of carriers have out there, and determining their viability. And what they've come out and said to a person is that the arrangements that these motor carriers, they're looking at motor carriers that are controlling the work, the compensation, the debts of a lease operator, and they're saying that they should be prohibited. They're actually calling on Congress to make illegal certain forms of lease purchase programs. A lot of these carriers are making their bones on these drivers' backs with lease purchase programs that just aren't sustainable for the drivers, the lease operators, basically.
So when you sent me this article the other day, and I read through it, the first thing that caught me was the headline. You know,
Right, yeah.
The FMCSA panel is forbidding or recommending that they, no longer do truck lease purchases.
Right.
And I'm like,
We do that.
we do lease
Yeah.
purchases. What's happening? I'm a little concerned. So I went through and read the article, and it was a 51-page report.
51-page report. I saw that.
51
Yeah,
pages.
I
What
read
could you
every single
possibly
page of it.
say?
I read through it all this afternoon.
What could you possibly say in 51
pages?
pages about truck leasing other than their scams?
This is exactly. It's a real simple half page. You can just print it twice on one sheet of paper.
Yes.
Cut it in half and distribute it.
Oh, they're giving it to 102 friends.
Right.
So that's why they had
Exactly.
to do that.
I was going to ask what font.
It was Comic Sans, which we
Yes.
thought was super
Super
unprofessional,
unprofessional,
but that's
So our truck lease programs.
Yeah.
Size 6.
so
Sorry.
6.
Is that
Sorry.
Wait, is that the dress or the font?
I'm sorry. The font
No,
size.
the dress was yellow. So
Oh.
I read this and I thought, okay, this affects us. We're in this business. This might not be good.
Right.
Like we need another curveball thrown
Yes,
in
exactly.
early
We've dealt with enough of
2025.
them already.
And granted, this is just a recommendation. Nothing's in stone yet. But they did say specifically a motor carrier who controls the work, compensation, and debts of the driver is prohibited.
Right.
We are not a motor carrier.
We're not a motor carrier.
And we do not control the work.
We do not.
So I'm like, all right. Well,
Yep.
and we control the debts of the
The
asset, but we don't control anything else.
Right.
So I read through this, and it actually has a lot of support behind it. They actually were talking about how there are members on here of this panel from like I think had one. There's
Yes.
several small businesses that are on there, and there were people that went into this literally saying, we support the lease purchase model. We believe this is the right way to go. And after doing a 3-month investigation, they have all come back and said,
Nope.
wow, we
Yeah,
were wrong.
We were wrong.
Which blows
Wow.
me
Yeah.
away.
They felt like going into it. They felt like this is a great way to small business ownership, a great path, because this carrier is allowing you to lease this equipment with the right to purchase it at the end. It's a great path to ownership. But when they got into the minutia of it all, I was like, yeah, no, This is not good.
Absolutely.
This is not good at all.
And we see it on our end. So the recruiting, Melissa, you can kind of talk to this a
I
second.
was going to say I get a lot of people calling.
Get a lot of people who are in lease purchases and wanting to leave that.
Yeah, it's not a good thing.
They're getting ripped off. They're making less money than they were.
Yes.
These mega carriers, there's a few that do it well. So I got to be careful when I'm saying this. There are a few that do it well. And you may be a lease purchase person going like, well, my carrier treats me great. I'm making more money than I ever did. I own this really nice truck.
Sure.
Great. That's rare. That's the oddball. There's so many of these predatory companies, and some of these are big national mega carriers I can't list, otherwise they would take us to court.
Right.
Because they are predators, and they've realized we can make money off of selling the freight, delivering the freight, and then using the person delivering the freight as another profit center, and then we can make us even more money.
Right.
And they do that by charging ridiculous rates on trucks. They do
Yes,
that by
that's the biggest I hear.
Yeah, ridiculous rates on trucks, old trucks. It's a great way for them to dispose of their old stuff.
Sure.
So they go like, all right, I don't need this. We don't need this 300,000-400,000 mile truck anymore. So let's sell it to you, and you can have it for 4 more years. And we're making so much money in a year or two. When you realize this is a scam, we'll happily take it back.
Happily take it back.
Because at that point, we've owned it outright for a few years.
Right.
And we'll send it. We'll either put another person into it, or we'll send it to Ritchie Brothers Auctions, or send it down to Mexico and get rid of it. We really don't care. We've already made our money, and we made even more off you, which is a terrible thing.
It is.
But these mega carriers, a lot of them do this thing called throttling. And I didn't know. I learned about this a couple of years ago, like maybe 8 or 9 years ago. So, and that's their cute way of, with throttling. It's commonplace in the lease purchase business. And what they do is they know approximately, they know your truck note. They know what you're going to spend in fuel, because that's pretty much, if you have a large enough fleet, those are all like speed limited vehicles, yada, yada, yada. They know roughly what you're going to spend in fuel. They know what your tolls are going to be, because they're dispatching the freight, so they know exactly what you're paying in tolls. They know all this stuff. They know a pretty good estimate of what your maintenance will cost. And so they look at that and they go, all right, let's say all that stuff's $6,000 a month. Well, they know if we put $10,000 on your truck, you put $4 in your pocket over the course of a month, and then we get the 6 back, then they know that they're giving you just enough freight to make it.
Right.
Because most truck drivers that are out there running solo would look at $4,000 a month as nothing. Like, Melissa, you do recruiting. How many people, if we said you're going to make $4,000 a month, would laugh on the phone and hang up?
As a team?
No, we don't do solos, but still, just a driver.
No, they would. Complete laugh.
Yes.
They just would disconnect in a heartbeat. There wouldn't even be a goodbye.
But what these companies are doing is they're giving you just enough freight so you have your assets. They're stringing you along, and they control how much freight they put on your truck based on what your expenses are going to be. Now, the bad thing about that is if you ever have a major expense, they know you don't have enough money to cover it.
Right.
So they will pay for it, and then they will charge you back for it over several months and get even more money out of you. And they're running it through their shops, their programs, so they're free to mark it up. They're free to mark up the fuel you buy. They're free to do all that stuff. They can mark up your tolls. You know, they get the digital or the electronic price, but you pay the cash price. So they're doing all these things to make money off the driver, and they call it throttling. That's their cute industry-wide term for it.
That's
And
not good.
it is a shame because most people don't even realize it's happening. Some of you that are watching this may be in a lease purchase with a mega carrier, not realizing this is happening.
Sure.
And you sit back and think about it, and you're like, oh, man, that's exactly what's happening to me. As a company driver, I was running more miles, I was making more money, and I didn't have the burden of this truck. Because there is, at first, there's that, like, this is my truck.
Yeah.
I got this really cool truck. I'm owning it,
I run my own
whatever.
business.
Yeah. And that starts to wear out when you see these companies are taking advantage. And some of them will, like, keep you really busy for the first few months.
Right.
I hear that.
And then they'll slack you off.
Yeah. And then I hear it's, I guess, a burden. I'm probably not using specifically that word, but you can feel the heaviness in the conversation that they realize maybe they were scammed or, whatever that feeling of not making as much if doing what they were doing.
Absolutely. Well, I love that they put a task force. I didn't even know that this task force was going to happen.
Task force.
To look at it. That tells me someone, and I guess it really comes down to, it started probably with the California the dockyards, right? Like that's where most of this started
Right,
was in California at the
ports.
the ports,
Yep.
where those people are. Those are in leases and lease purchases, and boy, they're just getting scammed left and
Oh,
right.
they're getting scammed left and right. Yeah, I mean they're paying for their trailer usage when they pick
Yes.
up a container, not a trailer, a chassis.
Mhm.
So these containers come off the ship and they go onto a chassis. So you see a trailer that's designed to hold these. So they're paying for chassis usage. They have all kinds of fees that they're paying,
Yeah.
and they're sitting in line for hours at a time waiting to get loaded. It's a racket. It really is.
I saw a report where they were saying some of those people are doing like less than $100 a day
Yeah.
is what their
Oof.
take home is.
Yeah,
It's insane.
it's ridiculous.
So
It's truly ridiculous.
So when you saw this article, you said you kind of had a pit in your stomach or in your throat and kind of thing, but then you read it. So why that initial feeling?
Well, so like that's our company. We lease trucks out as operational leases. So like you can lease a truck and bring it to a motor carrier. Our approved carriers right now are FedEx and Panther, but we're trying to add more carriers. And when we say approved, it's a carrier we know is going to pay their bills. There's a lot of carriers out there that, oh yeah, come join us.
Right.
We'll come work with you, and then they don't pay their bills.
Sure.
Or things get tight and they stop paying. So these are vetted, approved carriers. And again, we're trying to get more because we're mostly straight trucks. A little tricky. There's not a lot of options out there,
Right.
but we're working on it. So you can get your truck, you rent it from us, and you go and run for that carrier, and you're an owner operator. The cool thing about it is because these companies have no assets. Well, that's not true. They own trailers. They don't.
Trailers,
That's all
sure.
they own. They don't own any power units. They don't know what it costs to operate your truck. They don't know how much you spend in fuel. They don't know any of those details, and so they and they own none of those themselves. So they are equally distributing the freight
Right.
amongst all the trucks,
Yeah.
as opposed to like, okay, you've met your quota, so
So
we don't
we're
really
gonna
have
slow you
to.
down.
We're going to slow you down, and we're going to focus on this person over here. They don't do that.
Right.
And so that's how we're able to. That's how our business operates. Is we're leasing equipment to those carriers and to teams and small businesses that want to run those. And then we also have a very small program that we want to grow bigger, but it is a work in process. That is the lease purchase aspect of it, which is we have a truck that we want to get rid of.
Why would
then-
you want to get rid of it?
So typically, so you get rid of trucks for two reasons, right? One of
Yes.
them is they're a nightmare problem child, and you just get rid of it. You dump it.
Yeah, you can dump it.
You dump it. You get rid of it, and you let that
Yep.
be someone else's problem.
Yep.
The second reason is because we are a rental lease-based company, we need to have attractive equipment,
Sure.
and that usually means low miles. So when we have a truck that gets old enough or has enough miles on it, we then tend to get rid of it, right? We sell it, or we for the people that are in our program and we know and we do credit checks and all that stuff on, they can have the opportunity to do a lease purchase. And then what happens is we keep that truck in our fleet, but we set them up on a monthly note, and then once that's paid off, they own the truck.
Nice.
And so again, we don't own the work aspect of it. We don't own the freight. Either FedEx or Panther does, and so the teams are able to do whatever they want with the truck and kind of run their business that way. So this ruling doesn't affect us. But again, the title, the headline did. That's where I was like, oh no, I don't want that aspect of our business to go away because it's really cool. Because we do have, they talked about the small business. They found out that most of these small carriers, most of these mega carriers don't lease purchase, don't give you the option to grow your business. We've got several fleet owners that have started their business by
Right.
lease purchasing a truck from
Yep.
us. We've got a few people that I can think of that are more towards retirement age who have lease purchased a truck, paid their houses off, paid all their vehicles off. One guy is a buddy of mine, just paid off. He bought a brand new Chevy Yukon High Country or something like that.
Right.
Beautiful. He told me all about it. It sounds like an amazing car. Paid cash for it.
Wow.
Like, came in, worked the system,
Yeah.
lease purchased the truck,
Mm-hmm.
paid the truck off. We've got probably 4 or 5 teams that have paid their trucks off. And because of our discount program and our maintenance program and everything, they still operate their trucks with us and their carrier because they like what we do, but they own their truck outright. We don't know anything about it. It's completely them. They've worked the system and done it. So it's a good program that I believe in, and we've got a lot of people that stand behind it and say, hey, look, this actually works. It's really nice. But when you look at some of those other mega carriers, it's like, no,
Right.
it doesn't work that way. Yeah, that's a segment of our business.
And we're not doing the things that you mentioned the mega carriers are doing. We're not marking up fuel.
Correct. We pass that through.
We pass that through. So we're passing through
The discount.
the discounts that we're getting
And when
on
you're
these
talking
things straight to that team.
upwards of $1 a gallon, it's
Yeah,
huge.
that's huge.
$100
That's
every time
huge.
you $120 every time you fill up your
Yeah.
truck.
As a discount?
Yeah,
Yeah,
as a
Wow.
discount.
that's huge.
It's huge.
So we're not doing things to try and make money off these drivers' backs. We're selling them the truck or leasing them the truck at our cost, basically. And that's
Yes, there's a little markup on the lease payment, right?
Well, yeah,
Like we
but-
have, obviously, we're in business to make money.
Sure.
But it is a reasonable market
Sure.
rate. It is not like I've seen some of these people. They're like, oh yeah, we take what the truck costs us, and then we add on $500 a week, and that's what you pay. And it's like, holy cow,
Mm-hmm.
$2,000 a month in interest. Like that's obscene.
Yes.
Like that's
Yes, it
insane.
is.
Wow.
None of us would agree to a deal
No.
that was that kind of money. Yes, there's lots of predatory stuff out there like that, and that's not our market. That's not what we do. So again, I was nervous that like, are we going to get put out? Sometimes the good companies have to go away because of the bad companies.
Yep.
So I was nervous about that. But again, reading the article, you see that is not ours. But what I really thought was cool was that the OIDA agreed with the findings, and they actually went further and said, we've actually been lobbying about this for years.
Yeah.
We've been saying this is a problem,
Yeah.
but nobody would ever listen to them.
Wow.
And then there was another one. I can't think of who it was. They also came back and said these companies. Oh, I'm sorry. It was the president of OIDA. He said predatory lease purchase agreements prey on trust, leaving drivers financially and emotionally broken. Like, how brutal is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Lose a lot of good drivers that way.
The industry that was one of
Industry
the
as a
things
whole.
is the industry as a whole is losing drivers because they're fed up with what's going on and they can't.
If you can't
Imagine
make
how they can
money,
do it.
why do you keep doing it?
Why do you keep doing it? Exactly.
I did like that the task force pointed out, like what they want is a congressional mandate to make this illegal, right? But they did point out that they had several things that they could do that if Congress doesn't play ball, that I thought was pretty interesting. One of them was FMCSA oversight. They're saying the FMCSA needs to focus more on these programs if Congress doesn't make them illegal,
Right.
and really look at things like pay and safety and anything like that. And they also want people to keep better records. Like these motor carriers they're not keeping very great records about all these lease purchases that they're doing. And
Sure.
I think part of that is because they don't want any governing agency to see
Right.
it. But now they're saying that that's part of the conversation is to have FMCSA take over that portion and make those carriers see that you have to submit that you're all the details.
Right.
So we have to see, and that also kind of correlates with Department of Labor enforcement and making sure people aren't abusing this lease purchase program to kind of like hide what really should be classified as employees.
Right.
And it makes sense if you own the truck and you have a driver in it and you're giving them the freight and you're saying run this, you must do this and must do that, even if they're paying for that truck,
That's an
that's an
employee
employee.
relationship.
Yeah. So that's something that they're looking at as well.
And you can't do a lease purchase with one of these carriers and take that truck wherever you want to go.
You're stuck
You're
there.
stuck with that carrier.
Correct.
You're stuck with that carrier.
Yeah. And that is one nice thing, like, our trucks with the two carriers we work with, right? Like you could cross-mingle
Sure.
them. They do work with both. So they have their strengths.
Right.
Some are better than others at different things, but they do. Both of them, you can cross through those trucks.
I just want to piggyback on that in case you're watching this podcast to get yourself some research if this is what you want to do. You cannot run freight for Panther today and FedEx tomorrow. The way you said that,
Oh,
cross-mingling.
Okay, yeah.
I just want to make it very clear. It's one or the other. It's not we're running freight for both. It
Correct.
just depends on who gives us the freight that day. So that question actually came up tonight in one of my last phone calls,
Oh.
and there was some confusion. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
You got to pick one or the other that you're going to apply for, and then that's who you do business with for a duration of time. Now, again, if I guess you feel the grass is greener elsewhere, then, but again, there's an application process and the whole, you have
Absolutely.
to do it all over again.
And that is FMCSA rule.
Correct.
Right? Like, you can't be a driver for 2 different companies. You have to have
Correct.
your drug testing, all
Right.
of your hours service, and everything
Correct.
goes
Yeah.
through one carrier.
You just kind of said that, and it
Yeah,
just made me think that
I was
some
wondering.
people might think if you can pick up a load for FedEx today and Panther tomorrow, but no, that's not the way it
Kinda
works.
like-
Yeah.
Kind of like Uber Eats and DoorDash. They all
Correct.
will
They
sit
all
there
work
with
everything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's because they're unregulated.
Yeah.
So they
Yes.
can do that.
They're,
Yeah.
they're not operating under a DOT number.
There we
Correct.
go. That's
Yeah.
what it's all about. Yep.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, like, because pilots are the same way. I don't know if you remember last season, I think it was, there was a pilot that got fired from Virgin Atlantic because they were also flying for, like, Turkish Airways or something.
Oh,
So when they had off days at Virgin, they were flying at Turkish when they were at, and vice
Ooh,
versa.
That messes with like
It-
hours of service.
Hours of
type
service,
stuff,
yeah, absolutely, because
too.
pilots had that same rule, and they're like, you
Yeah.
can't do that, so they got fired from both airlines.
oof.
Yeah.
Wow.
But,
hopefully, he had a
Put a
good.
lot of people in danger.
Hopefully, he had a
Yes.
good retirement package,
Well,
401k or
I
something.
mean, rest periods are there for your safety, right?
Sure.
They are.
Sure.
Like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, remember last weekend, the doing drugs and
Yeah.
driving across the country in one straight
Right,
shot. Like,
yeah.
that's dangerous.
That
It's
is.
super dangerous. So same thing with pilots.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it, yeah, I didn't even think about it when you said, "Hey, let me correct it." I'm like, I didn't think I said anything wrong, but I didn't even think about
It did come out in a way that
it. Did
it could be misconstrued.
absolutely?
Yeah.
After you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, because in my head, I'm thinking like, I've been in this business for
Sure.
over a decade. So to me, it's like, of course, you can only run for one carrier at a time.
Right.
Sure.
It never would occur to me you could do both. Now, there are companies, like if you're a Covenant driver, for example, I know Covenant pulls FedEx loads and they pull ArcBest loads. And
Sure.
they pull, but you're driving for Covenant and they're carrying those other carriers overflow freight, right? You're not then driving for FedEx and then you're driving for UPS and then you're driving for
Right.
Right.
Old Dominion.
Right.
You're driving for Covenant and you're picking up those loads for those carriers. So
Well, and
it is a little bit different. I could see how people could be confused and thinking,
Right.
like, if Hyfield was its own authority, then you could pick up these, but it's not. That's not the way
no,
we
and
operate.
but the authority part is where it comes in there. If you're driving for Covenant as a Covenant company driver and you're hauling a FedEx trailer, well, FedEx brokered that freight to Covenant,
Yes,
and Covenant's running it under their DOT number and their authority.
absolutely.
It's no longer a matter of, in the public eye, it's not a matter of, okay, that this Covenant guy is calling FedEx. It's, I have this load that Covenant has, and we're running it under our insurance and our DOT number,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
And not as a FedEx. FedEx didn't dispatch that driver that load.
Absolutely. So, like, for example, if that truck were to get in a wreck,
Yes.
and everybody sues trucks, what they
Mhm.
do. If they went, it's got a FedEx trailer, but it's a Covenant truck,
Right.
they would sue Covenant
Covenant.
Correct.
because
They're responsible for the.
they're responsible for the safety.
Yep.
And if the
FedEx would say we had no part of it.
If that cargo was damaged, Covenant's insurance
Correct.
would be on the hook for that cargo because it's
Absolutely.
now in Covenant.
And that being
hands.
said, we don't condone suing trucking companies.
No,
you
we
know,
don't.
I recommend trying to work with our insurance companies. That's one thing I've actually found because we get hit. Our trucks get hit by other trucks. Like we're in that same boat. We have so many trucks running all over the country. We do insurance claims all the time with other people's insurance because they hit us.
Right.
I can't tell you how many bumpers we've had ripped off of the front end of trucks
Jesus.
from just parking lot
Yeah.
Right.
issues.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The thing about commercial insurance is a lot of times they're super easy to work with. Like, I feel bad. Some people like, oh, I'm going to get a lawyer. They get a lawyer. And it's like, if you'd have just talked to the insurance company, you would have made more money because you didn't have to pay
The lawyers.
the lawyers
40%.
to do all that. So if you ever are in that situation, I would have the conversation with the insurance company. If you don't hear what you like, get a
Yeah,
lawyer.
the lawyer. Yeah.
But yeah, commercial insurance companies they're used to it. They're used to writing big checks. They don't think twice about it. We had a claim today. It was $42,000. We sent them all the documentation, and they wrote us back immediately, like, "All right, thanks for doing everything. We've got our approval. Send you a check."
Wow.
Like commercial
But I think
companies
it's part
are.
of the business, right?
It is. They know their product. If you're used to dealing with like State Farm and Allstate and all those guys with on the cars, it's hassle. It's a lot of like
Sure.
a lot of Rick and whatever. Commercial companies, they want it to go away.
Yeah.
They're just like, here's a check, bye, and it
I
makes
also
it a
think,
lot
though,
easier.
In my opinion, if you think about it, there's so much, I'm going to call it science. I don't know what other word to call it, on how we're driving these vehicles, putting the brakes on here, you have to allow for so much because we're so heavy, or how you back into a parking spot in a truck stop. You have to set it up with the way that the pendulum works in a Class A vehicle. All of that. A car doesn't have all that. Okay, you might drive an SUV, which is a little bigger, and you have to navigate a tight parking spot. But I think part of the industry, in my opinion, there's so much more that maybe they've just don't have that problem. I don't know where I was going with that, but it
Well,
just feels
I
like there's
think-
so much science in science is not the word I'm looking for, but there's
Statistics
not,
of it.
It's not a simple vehicle to drive. It's not 4 wheels, 20 feet long, or however
Yes.
a car is, 10 feet long, whatever your sedan is. It's just not simple.
Sure.
And so maybe they just are like, okay, statistics show that on average, over the course of the last umpteen years, these accidents happen because
Sure.
it just happens.
I think to Patrick's point too, $42,000. We got your information. Here's your checks on the way. Well, if they decide they want to fight that and not pay $42,000, how much are they going to pay ultimately when the lawyers get involved?
Sure.
On their side as well.
Yes.
Because they've got lawyers on staff, and those lawyers are being used all the time. But if everything has to go through the lawyers,
Right.
and everything has to be litigated, that costs them that much more money. At some point, it's cheaper to pay for. You got a repair bill from Johnny's trailer shop.
It's very
that
black and
says
white.
this is how much it can cost to repair this trailer. Well, they want to fight it. It doesn't make sense if that's the actual cost. Pay it. Because again, it's going to cost more once you get lawyers involved
Sure.
to pay your
Sure.
lawyers.
Makes sense.
Their fees, and then you end up paying $42,000 anyway, plus
Yeah.
the lawyers' fees.
I
Yeah.
tell you, it was interesting. Eric and I were in Denver back when we were driving, so it's been several years now. And his aunt at the time was an insurance adjuster, a commercial insurance adjuster, and she mostly did property damage. So that could be like a car drove through a house, or it could be a neighbor's tree fell on their property, or out in Colorado, someone did something that caused us not to get as much water as we were supposed to get because water rates are such a big deal
Sure.
out there. So hearing all the stuff she had to say, there's formulas on everything. I think about there was a movie that came out, and I actually really liked it a lot.
It was a great movie. And how much is it?
Yes,
A
what's
Life
a life
Worth.
worth? Is that was
We
that
watched it.
that was with Batman, right? Michael Keaton?
No,
No,
it was based on 9/11.
but that wasn't Michael Keaton.
No, it was based on 9. I don't.
I
Oh,
don't
it was.
remember. I
I
didn't
think
see
it
that
was.
It was
movie.
Michael Keaton.
Yes, but it was based on.
We'll get our fact checker and we'll have that
It
information.
was
to you
based
soon.
on how they came up with what the
Yes.
lives.
of the
very
9/11
sad.
victims. were.
Yes, 9/11 victims and the insurance companies instantly, like it was almost it happened. It was an amazing movie. If you've not seen it, we've watched it.
Yes,
And but how much is a life worth?
I do recommend if
And
you're
there was a formula.
if you're at a truck stop over a weekend and you're like, what do we watch? If you haven't seen it, look it up.
It's based on true facts.
It's based on a true story about 9/11, but those same principles
correct.
still work
Yes,
across the board.
with anything.
And my fact checker did just say it was Michael Keaton. Ooh. So the original title is What is Life Worth, but the actual name of it is Worth.
Yes, it was good.
And with Batman, Michael Keaton.
Batman.
Did you see him at the Oscars when they had Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, which of course is Mr. Freeze and the Penguin, and they were like, Michael Keaton was in the audience, and they were like talking about him, and the camera shot over to him, and he just has this like mean growl in his face or whatever. I loved it. I thought it was great. But
That's a squirrel.
yeah, sorry.
I'm like, if you're gonna really squirrel, let's just say Beetlejuice 2 did not disappoint.
Beetlejuice 2 is actually really fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot. It was not as good as Beetlejuice
No,
1.
it wasn't, but
it
didn't-
was very fun. You know what? I like this. You know, for so long these sequels have sucked.
Mhm.
But like Coming to America 2 or whatever it was great. I love the original Coming to America, but not the remake, the sequel was awesome. Beetlejuice 2 was great. Dumb and Dumberer was the dumbest, most horrible movie I've ever seen in my life. I love Dumb and Dumber. It is in my top 10. I adore the movie. The sequel is unbelievably horrible. Um,
I didn't mean to squirrel.
but
us.
I am excited about all these like sequels that are actually good. Anyways, so Worth. So yeah, these insurance companies, they all have
Formulas.
these formulas, and they've figured all this stuff out. So, I don't know, pro tip. The other thing, I saw an article actually when you said this to me that relates to this a lot. And as y'all know, we are in the midst of a giant change for the U.S. We just got a new president, a new old president.
Returning
A
president.
returning. We rinsed and repeated. No, we didn't. We rinsed, hung out to dry, and then repeated. And he is obviously putting his cabinet together, and the U.S. Senate just confirmed Sean Duffy to become the president. I'm sorry, to become the Secretary of Transportation. And he didn't win by a majority. He won by an overwhelming majority. A great stance of bipartisan voting. Everybody loves this guy. Did y'all see anything about this?
No.
Oh, man. Everybody loves him. Chairman of the House Committee on Transportation Infrastructure said he's confident under the Secretary's leadership we can improve America's infrastructure by focusing on improvements on core projects like roads, bridges, streamlining
Woohoo.
project delivery, which means getting it done faster, and getting the department back to the fundamental missions of the federal transportation programs, moving people and goods safely and efficiently. And they've really like everybody's singing his praises. Again, he got it wasn't like it wasn't, what's it called, when everybody votes all
Majority.
the same way. No, all the same way.
Unanimous.
It wasn't. It
Unanimous?
was not
Yeah.
unanimous.
Yeah.
There were 22 people that voted against him, but it was a huge majority.
Well, here's how big this is. The American Trucking Association president and CEO, and also the president of OOIDA, are both praising this guy, and they usually butt heads.
They don't like
They
each
do
other.
not like each other, but they're both singing this dude's praises. So,
So does that mean
Yep.
Indiana's going to get completed?
well, that's state
I just
level.
meant Indiana, not
Yeah.
a specific road. All of Indiana.
Well, so when you look at something like Indiana, it's interesting because the Department of Transportation, the federal DOT, they'll give Indiana all this money and say,
Right.
do this, but it's
Yeah.
up to Indiana to run the project.
Sure.
So, like, Indiana's, the whole state's under construction. I
I'm like,
mean,
they
it's
run the project forever.
forever. It'll be so nice when it's done. But
But they'll just start over.
I know. I feel like Kentucky, that whole stretch from Louisville to Nashville, not Nashville, but the Tennessee state line, they redid all that. All those years Eric and I were driving, it was constantly under construction. But it's 3 lanes of beautiful concrete. It's great. If you've driven it lately,
It needs to already work.
oh my gosh, it needs redone. It's like they
a
forgot
top
to.
layer.
Yes, it's like they forgot to like site prep the dirt or something. It's just like boom.
They didn't
boom,
pound it
boom,
good
boom, boom.
enough or whatever they do with their little, you know what I'm talking about. They pack the dirt before they
Yeah.
lay
Right.
the.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They didn't do
So
that.
great.
And they've got
Something-
air pockets and it's lumpy. And
Something wasn't done right.
Ah.
I was on 270 eastbound today, leaving FIDA, coming back towards Columbus.
Oofa.
And you know that stretch of road.
that's
I've
good.
been on that
That's
stretch.
just.
well,
Can we just say
they-
Hot Mess Express?
Speaking of hot mess, they were out today doing hot asphalt patches.
Nice.
Just
But
patches.
they were,
Just patches.
They were the other day too when we went out
They
there.
were.
They're still
Yeah.
working on that same section,
that
right?
same section.
Right
What I
when you come
like
off
is
of
that they're
FIDA.
patching the patches.
They are
I
patching
think
the
they
I
patches.
love the
It's like
seams.
Patch Adams.
You come in from the west,
Uh-huh.
wherever, let's say Indianapolis, whatever, that direction, and you come in and you hit that section just before like Hilliard Rum Road or Plain City, and all of a sudden it's like every 10 feet,
Yeah.
and it's like 20 miles, it feels like, of
Yes.
Nothing but patches. Yeah.
Ay,
Well, they were patching the patches again today.
So now it's going to be
It's kind of already that. It's like a train. You ever heard train passing faster? Clickety clackety, clickety clackety, clickety clack. That's how it is. Which if you're in if you're in one of our big heavy straight trucks, it's annoying, but you deal with it. If you're in a bobtail,
oh,
it's
yeah,
like
ridiculous.
it's
Yeah.
crazy.
ridiculous.
So do you go down the road going, so you can get the
Yeah, it sounds
vibration like you
it's-
did when you were a kid?
It
going
sounds
over the bridge?
it sounds like you're yelling into a fan. You ever
Oh,
yell into a box
yes,
fan?
that was fun.
That's exactly what it sounds
So
like.
no,
Yeah.
it's crazy, but no, it's Truckload Carriers Association. They are excited. So they said they were looking forward to improvements in like the automatic braking stuff, improving safety, hair follicle testing, which they say they're talking about hair testing improvements. Are they not using hair testing for drug and alcohol clearinghouse?
I was going to ask
No.
you that. Who can I?
That blows me away.
Well, you know
Yeah.
why they don't?
No.
Because it's expensive.
Oh, okay.
That's why they don't.
All right.
As a recruiter, that is probably one of the top questions when it comes time for that question,
Sure.
I guess.
Now,
And people ask, are they doing hair follicles? Some people naturally shave, I guess, just because that's what you do.
Yes.
So if they're going to go for that type of testing, they need to be prepared for growing their hair out.
well, but you don't have to
But you
use
don't
hair
have
on
to.
your head. You can use
Correct.
underarm hair or body
Correct.
hair as well.
No comment.
Yeah, but I know
no comment there.
Mr. Clean.
Yes,
Mr.
what kind of
Clean
shaving?
doesn't.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So my question
He's
is,
a swimmer. If you're a swimmer, you
Yes.
don't
If
have
you're a
any hair.
swimmer, right.
So,
That's true.
so as from a recruiting point, I always say that's up to the carrier.
Correct.
Yes.
However, what determines if, based on whatever you're doing here in your article, what determines pre-employment, not just a random, but a pre-employment drug screening, how they decide if you're just doing a urine test or a follicle test, hair follicle, or maybe both? Is the FMCSA determining that? I've never asked
FMCSA
that question.
requires a urinalysis for drug and alcohol or a breathalyzer test for alcohol. They do not require a hair follicle test
For pre-employment
for pre-employment or for
or random?
So a carrier can go above and beyond what the FMCSA requires, and they can require a hair follicle test.
I suppose that's in situations maybe where they've gotten something that says, hey, this person's been doing something, and they've maybe
Yeah, how
passed
do you
a
decide that?
previous
How does the carrier
urinalysis.
decide
Yeah,
that?
is that a random? A hair follicle a random, or that's a specific?
Again,
would
as a
think-
pre-employment,
Yeah.
the carrier can go above and beyond what the FMCSA
pre-employment.
requires.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I would think
Same
too
with a
if
random?
they got a sample, for example, like if you and we've had this happen a few times. If you get a sample and it's like too watered down,
Right.
so it can be by mistake. This is not necessarily you're
Sure.
trying to cover something.
Sure.
You just went to the restroom. You're feeling great. You jump in the cab of the truck. You get the phone call. Hey, we need you to go do a
So then
urine
you power
test, and you're
water.
like, oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So you grab a liter of Dasani, you chug it, you go there. Oh, they find out a couple of days later it's too watered down. A lot of times they'll just have you go again. But sometimes if they're like, something was funny, it wasn't just watered down, but like the temperature wasn't right,
the color
or
was
the color
off.
was off or
Yeah.
something, then they may take it a step further and say, okay, well then, let's do hair follicle, or blood testing is always an option, but that's super invasive.
Sure.
It is funny.
Is that really something they do? I'm
a
sorry.
lot of times in accidents, like if you
Oh.
If you
if
end up in
you're
the hospital.
yeah, if you end up in the hospital and you're unconscious,
Yeah.
they'll do
Oh.
blood. But they're already getting
Learned
your blood
something
out.
new
So,
today.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you're unconscious. That's usually
Sure.
not.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for pre-employment, you can also get multiple tests out of the same thing. So you're getting the urinalysis for drug, and then they can also, because for FMCSA, you also have to check for high sugar.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that also comes out of your
Exactly.
urine.
Correct.
My hair follicle thing. Every time I see someone talk about hair follicle, it always makes me just laugh. There's a musical artist in Louisiana, very famous, and he loved his cocaine. It was his
You've talked
jam.
about him before.
And he has a nickname, like he's that, like amongst people who know, not publicly known, but amongst people who know. And so he got in trouble for it, and served some time in jail, and then got let out on probation. And they were like, "Why are you doing cocaine again? Like, you shouldn't." He said, "Well, because I have to go get follicle tested." So he shaved his body. He's like, that way they can't. And they're like, "You idiot. Don't you know, like, you still have follicles even if
Right,
you shave
they're
your
still
head."
there, Yeah.
And he's like, whatever. Got randomly selected to go get a follicle testing.
They pluck his nose
They plucked a hair from somewhere, put him right back to jail.
from somewhere.
and so he spent, another couple of years in jail and then got out, and he's been clean ever since, which is great because he's actually a fantastic musician. I'm glad he got clean. But, it was a trip. And so every time I hear hair follicle, I always think of that. So I will.
Yeah.
I will say this: you put a bunch of weight on.
Oh, that's good.
He used
Snacks.
To be, used to
Snacks
be
are
a,
good.
Used to be a little skinny guy. And then they are pushing for expanded trucking parking facilities, which I think everyone, if you spend any time on the road, you know we need
Yes,
more
we do.
spaces to park. It's
We do.
something's come up a
Safe
few times.
places.
Safe
park.
places, absolutely. Like it's and you see some places trying, like outside of Memphis, there's a few places like when you're heading into Arkansas
Uh-huh.
where they have some like big parking spaces,
Right.
but there's no services.
Yep.
They might have a porta potty.
Maybe.
But at 2:00 in the morning, I'm not walking to that porta potty because there's nothing else there. There's no security,
There's
nothing.
no light.
Uh,
in some
they
of
have
them.
a couple lights,
Okay.
but not
Well, I
by
don't know
not
about those.
much.
But
Yeah, it's sketch.
The
So-
truck parking place club that we've talked about before
Yes,
from Matt's.
they've been growing like wildfire.
They've been my email because I'm subscribed to their emails, and they've been growing like wildfire. And maybe we should get their link back up. But I'll get that to you. But anyways, that's another option, and
So it'll be in the
I'm
description.
super excited that they're an entity or a business who have just grown and realized there's an issue with truck parking. They're the
Absolutely.
ones that like use maybe people's ranches or dilapidated whatever.
There's all kinds of stuff.
But they're using all sorts of parking lot. But they also share on their app. Like, does it have lighting? Does it have garbage disposal? Like does it have security gates or a security guard? I think it's a great program. And if Vince and I think were out there, I would definitely be utilizing it more. I mean, obviously I signed up just to promote their business because I think they had a great thing to offer. And now watching all of the emails I get on a daily basis, they're growing like wildfire, and they're finding those vacant areas to offer to truck drivers. I think it's a great program.
I remember when they first came out and we met them at Matt's.
We
and everything,
did.
I thought like this is a cool concept, but you know what's going to happen is someone's going to leave urine bottles, and there's going to be
They are.
this, and it's going to. I don't know if it's going to sustain itself, but it's
Sure.
not only sustained itself; it's actually grown.
It's grown.
And they're doing a really good work. And it reminds me, there's a boondocking app. So boondocking, if you don't know, is when you have an RV and you stay somewhere free, you don't pay anything to stay overnight. So like
Correct.
Walmarts are usually pretty friendly
Sure.
for boondocking and stuff. But there's all kinds of places all over the world, all over the country that have those. And a lot of those apps are very similar. They're like, you can stay here in this city. And they can leave reviews. I was there 3 nights ago, and they now have a trash can, or you just got to tell the owner you're coming. Here's the phone number to call them and
Right.
let them know and whatever. And it's cool to see that kind of stuff on a commercial level. Because,
Yes.
RV places aren't necessarily truck friendly, and to see it on the truck side
Sure.
is great.
Sure.
It's
And I would think that the parking club, I wish I could remember their name.
is that not it?
Is it Parking Club? It might be. But I think that they're vetting. I would assume, I'm assuming, I don't remember asking them when we were at Matt's, but I would assume that the places they're finding are rated for truck weight. Whereas I think
Oh,
your
yeah.
boondocking, I would be a little nervous. Am I going somewhere where my truck might sink into the dirt?
Absolutely. Well, even with the boondocking thing, that's something they talk about is because you think about camping.
Yes.
Camping can be so many things. You
Right.
could be camping in a pop-up trailer that weighs 2,000 pounds,
Right.
Yes.
or you could be camping in a 45-foot Prevost that weighs
Yes.
40,000 pounds,
Yep.
and it's heavier than our trucks.
Sure.
So they do talk about that in the apps of
Yes.
like trailer only, or you can put a big truck here or what. So our big RV here. So I'm hoping they're doing the same
So
thing.
my fact checker let me know it is the Truck Parking Club.
Yes.
So there you have it.
Good people, check them out if you're looking for
Yeah,
places
we
to
enjoyed
park.
meeting them in Matt's
Yep.
a few years back. 2 years?
Yes. Wow. And then going back to the article,
Yeah,
boy, we are squirrel like crazy.
Yeah.
that's okay.
If you are here for linear, we're the wrong people for that. I did like what Oida said. They are they praised Duffy since he's been around this world for a while, and they said he's demonstrated his interest in addressing regulatory burdens affecting small business truckers. Which obviously, since we're in the small business small business trucking world, I guess that's the way you put it. Anything that can be helpful to that. I did see somewhere in there they were talking about he was working with or lobbying for no logs or paper logs, no ELD mandate for
What?
small trucking business. And at this point, that seems like I don't think it'll ever go back to that.
I don't think so either.
But it at least shows at some point he was like, I see this as a bad thing and I want to help out. So hopefully he continues that. I mean, obviously, again, bipartisan support. I think it's pretty obvious our political nation is divided as ever to get everybody to agree.
Sure.
Sure.
It's pretty remarkable.
Sure.
Do you need paper logs if you're a farm rancher kind of guy and you're
There's-
taking the hay from 12 miles that way up to the barn over here in the
So it depends on the state.
Oh,
So Ohio has this in Columbus, and I had it down in Louisiana as well, which and their rules were a little different, but very similar. Basically, if you were within 75 miles of your domicile, so 75 miles of either your license,
75 air miles.
yes, 75 air miles of your domicile, then it could be like, I've seen a lot where it gets a little confusing. Like, is it the address on your CDL? Is it where you live? Is it the
Oh, for
location
Pete's
of
sakes.
the facility,
business?
the
Yeah.
business? Then you don't have to log, which is
at
why
all?
at all.
Paper
At all.
ELD.
Nothing. Which is why, if you look at like postmen don't log, Amazon vans don't log,
Right.
your concrete mixer trucks that are around your city, they don't log. The dump trucks aren't logging. Garbage men don't log. It's because they're within that domicile region. Now
Okay.
that is the local region. There are others that do require it. I've been on city buses before that have little Omnitrix units in there, and they're logging the hours of the bus driver. And it's a city bus, so it just depends on the state and what their rules are.
Are paper logs still a thing? Let me ask that question.
Only I don't think as a primary source anymore. I think paper logs, from my understanding,
Right.
and if I'm wrong, feel free to drop a comment. I believe paper logs are strictly backup at this point.
Which
So I just did some
Google search?
No, I had to go through all these little classes and things. Right?
Oh, you did?
Yes, that's right.
And if you are only driving, now I got to remember.
I thought it was like 350.
Now we find
Now
out.
that
huh?
you talk about it, I do remember taking
It's
that
only
class.
like 7 days or 8 hours, or I can't even remember, but it's like a really short amount of time. Then you can use paper logs. I think it was only like 8 hours.
And that's but that's with from what I understood, that's with a electric failure, right?
Right. If
Correct.
your ELD fails, you can you can use paper logs for up to 7 days while you try and get it
Right.
repaired.
So
And you're also required to carry 7 days of paper logs in your truck at all
Vacant.
times.
Yes,
Vacant. Vacant.
Blank.
Vacant.
Blank. Thank you.
7 days of
Blank.
blank.
You
paper
are
logs
not
in your truck
allowed
at
to
all
have
times.
anybody living in your
on your
your
paper,
log.
on your paper logs. I meant blank.
Yeah.
Yes.
If
blank
I
paper
can
logs.
clarify real quick one thing you said
Yes, please.
regarding Duffy's support for possibly trying to get rid of paper logs. That's
or
not,
bring it back.
Bring them back. Yes, I'm sorry. Get rid of ELDs. What he's expressed an interest in support of a wider petition to provide relief to small business truck drivers from electronic logging device mandate. So not completely. He's not trying to get it rid of completely, just for small business truck drivers. Small business truck drivers, who knows what
What does that
could
mean?
mean, right?
Yeah.
Every time you say Duffy, all I picture is Patrick Duffy.
Patrick, yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, I
You
think
know,
of the
Dallas.
I think of the Duff beer from
Sorry.
The Simpsons.
That's funny. Okay, so let me ask you this. What's your stance on a small business? Now I'm talking mom and pa. Like very
Well,
tiny, maybe
The argument
maybe just across the state and back. Like Louisiana and back kind of thing. Just,
Well, I
state
think it
up and down,
well,
sideways.
let her finish talking. 'cause
kind of
I'm-
thing. Like what are your thoughts on just paper logs? More maybe on a 10-hour shift, 9 to 5. Okay, 7 to 6 in a state. There you go. That's my question. What are your thoughts on paper logs for something like that versus ELD? Not that I don't think ELD is the best, because it's all right there. You click, 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 and you're done. Who wants to write and draw graphs?
What's the question?
Can I?
anymore.
Yes,
Ask and
Please,
answer, Your Honor.
please.
Ask and answer.
I'm just saying. Who wants to
no,
go to
no, we-
paper logs when you've got ELD? Literally, you log in and it does it all for. I don't want to get the ruler out and a pencil and a
Right.
this and that.
So I was correct. You can use only paper. You do not have to wait for your ELD to break if you are only doing 8 days or fewer in a 30-day period.
8
That's
days or
what it
fewer?
In a
is.
30
8 days
day-
or
Okay,
fewer.
gotcha.
Okay.
I knew there was an 8
Gotcha.
in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Now, sorry. You
Back
wanna
to
go
your
back?
question.
Thank
So
you. We
my
appreciate
thought
it.
on the reason that people are trying to get an exception for small businesses is the cost of the ELDs.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So it puts an undue burden. Maybe I shouldn't say undue. It puts a burden on small companies to have to maintain ELDs. The really frustrating thing is when these companies go with these inexpensive ELD systems, and then they're found by the FMCSA to not be doing something correctly,
Correct.
and the FMCSA gives you 30 days to find a new one, and you got to scramble, and you invested all this money in this system. Now you have to find a new one and invest all this money in a new system, right? So the better known, better maintained, better qualified ELDs are out of the price range of smaller 1-2 truck fleets,
Sure.
right?
I get that.
And some of them aren't even practical. Like if you want an Omnitrax, like one Omnitrax unit in the service is ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
cost prohibitive.
Sure.
If you went with something like Motive, it's a little more cost effective, but it's still incredibly expensive, and it has to be installed. They do break, and we do get them repaired, and because we work with these carriers, they repair them for us.
Sure.
But we're paying a rental fee, so it's like a satellite box. Yeah, satellite box.
Yeah,
It
sorry
is.
about
Or a cable box on your TV. When
Yeah.
it breaks, the cable company sends you a new one. So it's like that, but it's still crazy. I mean, you think about our trucks, the cheapest version of that is about $35 a week.
Ooh.
So what's 35 times 52? Because it's every week is $1,800.
Our fact checkers over there.
That's $1,800
a year,
a year after it's been installed.
right?
So we still have to add the installation process on it.
Sure.
Versus paper logs, which are $5 or $6 for
A pack.
a month.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of see the burden there. And again, depending on what you're hauling, it may not be that expensive. Now, I know California is one state, I believe, that they have some very lenient farmer rules.
Yes.
Because when you're out in those orange fields,
Yeah.
your local distribution may be 200-300 miles
Sure.
away,
Or almond.
or almond,
Sure.
or
Tomato.
or
Olives.
garlic,
Or garlic.
yeah.
Hey, we've got them all.
or wine. Well, not wine. Wine would be
Grapes?
close, but still,
Grapes.
grapes would be close to the wine, right? Like
Maybe. They
should
generally,
be.
yeah. So they do have a lot looser laws when it comes to that, but they are the rarity, and that's only because they're such a tall state. Texas may as well, but I don't know.
Nice.
Like
So-
for cattle hauling or livestock hauling.
Possibly, but even a lot of them.
That's a even different.
It's a
category.
whole, yeah.
Category,
Livestock.
But
yeah,
trying to
livestock.
hook that ELD onto a horse is really hard.
It
It
is.
is. Well,
It
and then
is.
there's
So-
and then there's trucks that haul coal and things like that.
Yeah.
There's a whole coal lobby.
Or oil.
that-
Even further down in Texas.
like it's kind of weird seeing all the the oil field
I
stuff.
know, right?
They're like, what is a log?
What is the law?
So I mean, they're like, you go home when you can't keep your eyes open.
Seriously. So my question is, this guy's bill, I guess, let me circle back around. So that's a positive thing that maybe he's advocating for paper logs.
He's not necessarily
don't-
advocating for paper logs.
It does sound like maybe he's looking
OIDA.
for financial assistance, even.
OIDA, the Owner Operator Independent Drivers Association, has a petition to the FMCSA to provide relief to small businesses. Before he was confirmed or even put forward as the Secretary of Transportation, he was a member of Congress, and he signed a letter to the FMCSA expressing support Now, with the way I read this is when they say he signed a letter, it means others signed that letter also.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it wasn't just him saying this is so, but he's supporting this petition.
It's like a tax break or relief or credit or
Something.
something
could be
if
something.
you have to
Something, some
buy
sort of relief. Yes.
Omnitrax or a Clink or whatever they call it. Yeah. So, okay, I get it.
Yeah, which is fair. The government does it for other industries,
Sure.
for other things.
Sure.
They'll say like, "Hey, we're going to require this compliance. It's going to cost you money. So if you get in now, we'll help you with that. Now, if you
Sure.
get in after that,
Yeah.
What's the cost of
Sorry.
doing business?
Too bad,
Sure.
so
But-
sad.
I get it. Okay.
So I've been looking to here. Texas, California, Ohio, Iowa, all are no logging within 150 air miles. Doesn't matter what state.
Okay.
so it's
All right.
so in Louisiana, I think it was 75 per side, and I think maybe in Ohio they do an aggregate of
They couldn't do it
150
that way.
or something. So like
So you can go out and back.
in Louisiana, if you imagine it, you can go 75 in a circle. Diagonal would be 150, right?
Okay.
So
Diameter.
diameter would be 150
Okay.
miles.
Yeah.
But I think maybe here in Ohio you can go
It's
150 out.
Right. So 300 would be the diameter.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I did know
Yeah.
there was some weird thing about
Sure.
that. But,
Circumference
yes.
kind of thing.
No,
I
but
get it.
everybody
Not
else requires you to
I get what you're
log,
saying.
or they allow you not.
Everything that I mean, if you go outside that 150
I mean,
air
the
mile
other
radius,
states. The other states, though.
I didn't look at those. Those
Okay,
are just the
you
main
just-
ones
I
we
gotcha.
had talked about. The bigger states,
Yeah.
like Texas and California, how we said they've got.
Which
Probably a
California
lot
makes
more to go
sense because
through.
they're
Tall.
well. Also, though, most of their where they're harvesting to where they're delivering the product to. Let's just say tomatoes. That's what I saw a lot of,
Yeah.
or garlic. But most of that is they just picked it up in a field, and now they're just running it up by 5 to the distribution or the cleaning
Yeah.
or the
Sure.
wherever they warehouse
The
it.
Heinz
and
factory.
the whatever they do with it. So to me, that strip of where they're growing and doing all of that was well within the 150.
Oh yeah.
Like you're not going.
Even if it took them 5 hours to get there, they're
Sure.
still within the 150.
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
And those trucks are going slow because 55 miles an hour, and they're those doubles with those weird looking trailers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've had to do paper logs before. I just want to say that
Old school.
that was
I
orientation.
started on paper.
I'm like that was. Oh, mine was
Yeah.
orientation.
Jerry could
Yeah.
teach a class on paper logs.
Jerry.
Anyways,
Jerry.
you actually started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did you
No,
do
no, no,
paper
no, no, no.
logs?
He started paper logs.
Yeah.
Before that,
Oh,
were-
you
they
were
were
the
chiseled.
originator.
before that it was
Trust me.
papyrus and papyrus
Stone and
logs.
chisel.
Trust me, whenever the EOD went down,
Yes.
Don was looking at me because I was having to fill out his log because he had no idea. Because
Yeah.
he started on EOD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a tutorial at Panthers orientation. Literally, that was the only paper log I did.
My introduction to ELD was our logging period was at FedEx, and it was sitting through the
Just in case.
orientation. They talked about it, and I remember being like, watching, and like, they really want us to draw a line.
A straight line. We had a ruler in
Like-
our truck.
Yeah.
We had a ruler in our truck for the just in case.
I think it was a Schneider ruler that I
that's what
got
it-
from
Or
my
s-
trucking school.
trucking
But like we had a ruler so that those
Thank you, Snyder. Shout out to
lines
Snyder.
were
Unless
perfect.
you're in their lease
And
purchase.
I'm like, could you imagine back in the day? I'm loosely saying this, pulling in somewhere and setting your parking brake and making all your adjustments with the ruler before you got out and fueled or had to go to the bathroom.
No, they did it all
Yeah.
at the very, 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 very end.
I
so
know. I
they
said I
did
was
whatever.
loosely saying that.
No.
Oh, I'm
no.
sorry.
I'm
They did it
tattling.
Listen,
correctly.
I've got friends who may
I've
or
got
may not be
friends.
sitting here, and they will tell you about 3 logbooks,
No.
and you just had to you didn't erase and modify, you just did one logbook, and it ran that schedule, and then a different logbook ran a different schedule, and then a different logbook ran a different
Jerry,
schedule.
you didn't do
and
that,
was
did you?
I would never
No,
call out
Jerry
who it
did
is.
not do that.
Jerry did not do that. Jerry's a
not.
Jerry
logbook.
did use a ruler. Can you at least affirm to that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I used a ruler.
Did you
Yes.
really?
Did you use
Yes.
a pencil?
No.
No, black ink.
Black ink.
There you go.
Do you remember the carbon paper on the back side of it too?
Put it this way. I had to sit down. FedEx gave out the logbooks with the little carbon paper, and I
Still
used to
have 'em.
hate it because if you didn't line it up, it never would transfer
Yeah.
correctly, and the lines would be
Said
all
They
Robert's
have
messed
to
up.
press
Express.
hard.
And then on top of that, whenever you get done doing all that, when you're done with the run, there was no sitting down with your phone and taking a picture. You had to put all the paperwork together in a trip pack and go into the truck stop and find,
Find
a
the
trip
yellow
pack.
box. No,
Oh,
no.
that's
it.
No, you put it in a
Trey
trip pack
Slow.
box.
Yeah.
A what box?
A trip
You
pack
basically
box,
mailed it.
and it
Yeah.
mailed back to FedEx.
Yes.
Oh.
So it took overnight. They would
Yes.
get it, then they would process it, and then they paid
Yes.
out.
So at the end
Jerry,
of
how old are you?
the, so no, what happened at the end of the day?
He's not the only one. Patrick and I
So,
started out
we
that
did
way.
that.
You did too?
Yes,
You had to
yes,
send stuff
yes.
via
Yellow
mail?
boxes.
Yes.
Snail mail.
Oh man, and I remember missing the freaking deadline, and
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
oh man, it's not coming in on this check.
Yep.
Like, oh, it'd be so frustrating because they would literally like you'd put them in the box, and then the truck stop employee. And do you remember going to a truck stop and they didn't have one?
Oh,
Oh,
so,
they
and,
didn't
and then
have
you're like
one.
trying to find
Oh,
one and
so
scramble.
mad. At least when we started, you had the Trip Pack had an app, so you could find the location that
That's
had
good.
one.
I didn't have a smartphone when I
couldn't-
started.
Eric
you
didn't
just
either. Eric didn't
randomly
either.
guessed?
Eric didn't either. Eric had a freaking Nokia when we started. And I had this iPhone.
A Nokia.
iPhone
That's
wasn't even
okay,
invented
Eric.
when I started.
You think he's
Well,
joking?
No,
kn-
I know he's not joking.
listen. His phone was bolted into the console of the truck,
Yeah.
and it was. So
No.
no, when we
It was just a CB.
So no, the Trip Pack people. Okay, so the truck stop employee would walk outside, use a key, open it up, take all the Trip Packs, put them into a FedEx envelope, which I thought was hysterical.
Yeah.
Put them into a FedEx
You're like, can you
envelope.
just put that on my truck? Where do I need to take
Yeah.
it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Put it in a FedEx envelope, seal it up, and they had a pre-printed label, obviously. And then they would just the FedEx guy would come and grab it and overnight it back to Trip Pack, and Trip Pack would then scan everything and send it
To where it
to
need
the
to go.
different companies where it
Wow,
needed
what
to
a
go.
time ago.
Because nobody had scanners when this stuff came out.
Yeah.
Like the fact that Trip Pack had a warehouse with scanners. Ooh. Of course, Eric did kind of the same thing. Remember those days? But he worked for Capital One Bank. And look at his face. He had
That's a long
he's-
time ago,
He
huh?
scanned in and processed checks,
No,
right?
that's a job.
You scanned in and processed checks, right?
Yes, through the machine.
Wow.
Remember back in the
That's
day?
when people could, yeah.
You
could write a
when you
check
could
and
kite
then-
checks. Is that
And
what you're about to
you
say?
had, like,
Yeah.
You either had like 3 or 5 days before
Right.
it cleared.
It
This
was
place
so-
will do it in 2 days. This place will do it in 5. So I can write this to cover this.
It was so
and-
weird. Like the whole South Louisiana, probably Mississippi and Alabama too, all their checks showed up at the same building every night,
Yes.
Wow.
and you can't
Truckloads
like
of
truckloads
checks.
of checks.
Wow. What a day.
You can't imagine how much.
Well, he told me.
I bet you it's not the same quantity nowadays.
Well, they
I hope
closed the
not.
place.
Well, I'm just saying,
But
anywhere, because checks are still viable.
Yeah.
I just don't think a lot of people are doing that.
Even
Plus
when
the
I
Well, no,
cost-
but
the
now
cost
they're
to get them
all
back
doing
to that warehouse.
They're all working electronically.
yeah,
So
like
if you take a check somewhere, it's coming out right away.
it's immediate. Yeah,
Yeah, like you can write a check at Walmart, but they run it
they run it and give you the check back.
and give you the check
Yeah.
back.
Yeah,
Unless you go to a small town where we had, like, I would say there's probably about 40% of the customers of the town that I used to
You
work
live-
in,
yes.
in Atlantic.
Yes.
And yeah,
Writing checks.
writing checks, and it was the same old that went in the bank deposit and went to the bank the next
Yep.
day.
Even
you
so,
weren't electronically
well,
scanning.
Nope,
even
even
so-
electronic them.
when I worked at Regions Bank back in the day, even back then, which was after he was already out of his company, out of Capital One, we had imaging computers, and so we get the night drops, those deposits, and that was the first hour of business was just doing night drops, and then we'd open the branch, so we'd be there an hour early. Then we'd open the branch, and but during night drops, count all the cash, do the deposits for that, and then run the checks. And our little scanner right there at the thing would scan them and send them. Even then, though, there was a couple day delay.
Yeah.
Right.
Now it's instant.
It's
Yeah.
instant.
It's crazy
Right.
how far it's come. Because I do remember that. I do remember like writing a check, and then
And you're like, tomorrow's
waiting, and then,
deposit or the next day's deposit.
what? I never did that.
Oh, really?
I never
oh.
did, but I know
Mom
people
I did
that
that.
did.
Mom put the fear of God in me
Ah.
over that, so I never did. She's like, "You'll go to jail," and
Oh.
I'm like, "Okay, I'm not doing. I'm not writing bad checks." But I did. I do remember like sitting there going like, "I don't know how much money I have. Will you please cash the dang check so I know how much I have left in the account?"
So you weren't
and can-"
balancing, you weren't keeping a log.
No, mom.
Oh.
Mom balanced the checkbook to the penny, and let me tell you, after years of sitting in the living room with bills and checks and everything all
Yes.
around us,
Yes.
and Mom with her register
her register.
and going item by item with the
And
with the
checking in
adding
the middle
machine
column.
with the adding. Remember the adding machine with
Yes.
after
I
doing
still
that
like
for
to use those.
I,
Those are,
I they're great.
they're
I'm not
awesome.
knocking them. I'm just saying that's what we had after in the feel of the key.
Yeah.
It's like the old school keyboards.
Mhm.
Oh
Yeah.
man, nothing like them. So after doing all that for years, I'm like, I'm good. Even for the business, we pay someone. I'm not doing that crap. I am not doing it. And then, of course now, credit cards and everything. Like
Sure.
I never use my.
I
bank
haven't
account.
balanced a checkbook in a hot moment.
I never use my bank account. If you look at my bank account, it's like direct deposit from this company. Then it's this credit card bill, that credit card bill, direct deposit, this credit card bill, that credit card bill. That's it.
Yeah.
Like I don't use my bank account for anything anymore, which is weird. When I was a kid, debit card, like,
Yeah.
oh man,
The
that
times.
that brings
Paper
back.
logs.
Oh yes,
Paper logs.
paper logs. I was just gonna say, do you remember going from ATM card to debit card?
Yes, that was
Oh,
game
that
changer.
was awesome.
Game
It's a
changer.
game changer.
Mom was
Yeah.
ticked because the ATM card came in a sleeve
Yeah.
and the debit card didn't.
Oh my goodness.
Remember those days, Jerry?
I do.
Yeah.
I
How long
remember-
did you run paper logs for, Jerry? Roughly. Approximately how many years?
He still does.
No, I don't think
Only
so.
has a
He's got a
backup.
bunch of them in the Acura.
Akira?
Gosh,
Like 15 years, maybe?
no. I only drove 14 years, so I was probably on paper. You started on ELD. I'm looking at Don for those on the
Yeah,
camera.
Or fact checker.
Fact checker.
Fact checker.
Fact checker, yeah.
So probably 3 years.
Wow. Bet your
before-
mom has some stories.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She taught him the 3 logbook trick.
Yes.
I could tell you a story off camera.
Oh, fantastic. Can't wait.
I am a driver, so I
Mama
never
Boogie,
did
we won't
anything
hold that
legally.
against you.
So
That's right.
this is why we do not support OIDA's.
Except for small businesses.
We know for small businesses, we encourage credits, but we believe in the ELD mandate.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I would
It's so
much rather
easy.
be on ELD.
Wouldn't
it is
you?
way
It's just
easier.
so
It
simple.
is.
Yes.
Just
You
You
don't
just-
have to think.
yes,
Make
it
sure
does it
you're
for
the
you.
one logged in and go and push a couple
I
buttons
used to
on
hate
occasion.
stopping and then figuring out because you had to update
Ooh,
your logs
time
within 3
zones.
hours. So
Oh, 3 hours. Okay.
every 3 hours. So if you're fueling and all that, I mean, you do it, and then you start driving, and then you've got to stop and update your logs. Well, with ELD, I would drive 7 hours before I did my 8 hour break and not think about it.
Or not, or
You did
even,
an
or
8-hour
even,
break?
or even more that.
My 30-minute break, excuse me.
Even more than that. When Eric and I started, there wasn't a 30-minute break.
Yeah,
I remember driving. I
What?
remember driving my entire
Oh, yeah.
11
Absolutely.
hours.
Yeah.
There's no 30
No
minute.
30-minute break.
Yeah, you could
Okay,
do your
I'm so new to the
driving,
industry.
driving 10, 11 hours straight. Oh, it's great. You get your first wind,
Yeah.
your second wind,
Yeah.
and your third wind
I'm sure.
without stopping the vehicle.
Yeah.
Mr. Mr. Fat Checker over there, he would get behind that wheel, and I'm not lying. That truck did not stop for 9.5 hours.
So
Oh, yeah.
he started before that happened.
Yeah.
The
Oh, yeah.
mandated law.
Yeah, he didn't have to do
Wow.
it 30.
I don't know anything different, of course.
Oh,
well, if
oh, it
people don't
was-
know, I don't know anything different.
That
So-
30-minute break, and it came in hard. Remember, it came in. You had to have 30 minutes at between the hours of
Like
8 and 2 a.m. or something like that. It was something stupid.
it was like 2
Or 2 and 5.
5.
2 and 5. 2 and 5. You have to
which was detrimental for him,
I
for
killed-
Patrick, because he was a nighttime driver.
completely killed us
For
So
your
I'm a-
34?
for your 34.
Yeah.
So I'm over
Yeah.
here getting restarts and refreshes and everything, and he can't because he
Yep.
has to keep
Right.
driving at night.
It was brutal. And they
And
finally
we
got rid of
never
that.
we never
So-
switched schedules.
What they're talking about is to get a 34-hour reset. You had to have, if you can explain again, the time.
You had to have at least 34 hours. And in that 34-hour span, you had to not drive during 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. on 2 different days.
Oh.
So, because someone in Congress said, people need to sleep at night
Oh, jeez.
because that's when you sleep best.
No.
So even though
that's
for
when
the
the
entire
worst
week I've
accidents
trained
are.
It is.
for the entire week I've trained myself, you're up from 7 to 7.
Nighttime worker.
I mean that's what I do.
Right.
Yeah.
I sleep during the day. I now have to conform to this ridiculous rule. It's one of the few times I've actually seen the government go back and go like, that was a mistake. Sorry guys.
Oh.
Thank God they got rid of it. It was
It
brutal.
didn't
when
last too long. It was
it
what,
did-
like a
like
year?
year and a half, something
Yeah.
like that.
Ooh.
It
Still
fell
a
off quick.
while.
Yeah. And of course, the 30 minutes gotten looser and looser. So 30-minute used to be like absolutely nothing can be done.
Yeah, strictly
Net-
off duty.
Strictly off
Yeah.
duty. And now I think they allow fuel.
They allow,
It's changed.
They do,
Everything
they do
but
allow
driving.
fueling.
Everything
yeah,
but driving.
You can be on duty time for even unloading and unloading counts as
Yeah.
your 30-minute break.
Which makes sense.
It does.
Because really, what's that 30-minute break doing there? It's waking you up.
Yeah.
It's getting you blood circulating and
Yes.
waking you up. And
Yeah.
everything. So if you're like unloading a truck, or if I'm getting fuel at a fuel
You're
island,
moving.
or if I'm going inside and getting my snacks or whatever,
Taking
like
a quick shower on that 30.
as long as you're not in the fuel bay.
And the fuel island, yeah.
No, you can't be in the fuel line.
Well,
No,
you
no.
got to pull forward.
yeah.
Oh!
No, you just stand there and you get your driving partner to get the
Oh, yeah.
the
squeegee.
squeegee, and they just
Yeah,
scribe
just
you down
scrub
right
a little
there.
bit. Yeah, there you go.
That's funny.
And
Uh,
sometimes just taking the 30-minute break would make you tired.
Oh man,
Sometimes.
yeah,
It
sometimes
did
it
more
would.
damage than it helped.
Yeah, and it's weird because like I just drove a truck back. We've had a truck in California for 3-4 months. They no issue, like nobody's fault, but a headlight caught on fire. It's the only time it's ever happened.
Very rare.
Very rare. Couple hundred trucks, 12 years,
Yeah.
it happens. One time. So they had to like order a hood. The hood never came in, so they had to end up re-fiberglassing the hood. It was a big deal. And so it's finally done. So last week I went out after the recording and flew out to California, picked it up and drove it back. 4 days on the road. Had a freaking great time. I mean, like,
You
it
went
just-
through some states you haven't been through in a hot moment.
so when Eric and I drove truck, the line of business we were in, we typically were out in the desert a lot. Spent a lot of time out there. So I picked up the truck up out in California, out in Fontana, and in the middle of those winds, holy cow. I understand now why those houses were catching on fire like left and right. If you had a little tiny fire with those winds, they were no. So if you've driven through LA, you're familiar with LA traffic: 35 miles an hour, 25, 10, 0,
Stopped.
-5, whatever.
Yeah, backwards, yeah.
We were going 45 miles an hour, and there's no traffic because the winds were blowing so hard. Every 18-wheeler and box truck had to go slow, so we didn't get blown over. It was nuts. And got in the Cajon Pass. If you've ever been there, it's I-15 in the mountains.
Yeah.
It's actually really pretty.
Just climbing out of Los Angeles.
Just climbing out of Los Angeles, it's
Yeah.
pretty. And about halfway through there, the winds died down, and had no issue with the winds ever again. But just getting up there, and then once you're on the other side of that, you're in desert,
Right.
and you're in desert through Vegas,
Vegas.
and through
Up into the North Vegas, just past North Vegas where you get into Arizona there.
yes, and then I go through the gorge, which if you've ever been through St. George, the gorge, the Virgin River,
Beautiful.
it's beautiful. It's one of the prettiest spots in America that I can think of.
Are they doing construction through there still?
No, not when I was there. So it was nice. Went through all that, all through Utah. Utah's an amazing place to drive. You know, and growing up as a kid, I didn't know that. I knew Utah was a great Salt Lake, and I saw pictures, and I'm like, I'd
Right.
love to drive a car really fast on that. But other
Yeah.
than that, it looks kind of boring.
Trying
I
to
don't
break a
get it.
land speed record.
But when you drive through Utah north and south
Mhm.
is beautiful.
Yeah, it
it is
is.
Really
such
is,
a pretty place to drive. And then spent the night in Utah, made my way through Colorado, through the Rocky Mountains on I-70, which was a risk this time of the year.
Yeah.
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 But I checked the weather out. They weren't calling for any storms or anything. I did get snow right before Denver, but that was pretty fun going through all there, all the mountains. The mountains are just majestic. If you haven't driven the area, if you're thinking about driving a truck or whatever, you probably will get there at some point. It is so cool. It's breathtaking.
The river that runs alongside the
man.
I-70. It's
Yes. And what's really cool about it, too, I didn't take advantage of it because I was really trying to push hard to get home. And driving solo, you try to maximize your hours.
sure.
But they actually have several pull-offs. That whole area, the whole stretch of I-70 from like Denver to well into Utah, there's several pull-offs where you can actually go and see some of the most majestic, beautiful terrain. You're in high desert. You're in crazy desert mountains. Then all of a sudden you're in the middle of Arctic tundra, all in one interstate.
All in one, yeah,
It's
exactly.
I think it's the most expensive section of interstate ever built.
I believe
Is
it.
from Denver to where it hits I-15 in Utah, and it's breathtakingly beautiful. So I did all that, and then if you've driven it, you know what I'm about to say.
Kansas.
Then Kansas, east.
No, not even Kansas,
West.
just East
Well,
Colorado.
there's West Kansas, also known as East Colorado.
Yes.
And then there's Kansas, and then you get into Kansas City goes into Missouri, and that whole stretch from St. Louis to Denver is
Boring.
it's so boring, so boring. But made that trip, it stretched everything, and then from there it was on home. But just being out there out west, seeing all that terrain, it just did my heart good.
Yeah,
You know, I
bet.
really, really enjoyed that time out there.
I bet. And if you want to do that, you should call me
We got some trucks available.
at 833-493-4353.
That's right.
Or that's 833 Hyfield. Option 1, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Either myself or Delina would be happy to talk to you about the beautiful scenery in the West. Or you can send us an email at it's THE, Outer Belt,
We also
at
respond.
gmail.com.
Oh,
No.
we-
Oh, is it podcast?
The Outer Belt
Don't do anything
Podcast
else.
Oh.
Yes.
at
Well, we don't
gmail.com.
do the opening with the word podcast, but the email is with podcast.
The email was
I'm
created
confused.
after we established that
Okay,
we
Now-
were going to use
so
the
it's
word
the,
podcast.
right, Jerry? Jerry, what is it?
The Outer Belt Podcast
I like it when Jerry
at
says it.
gmail.com.
Now let me ask you a question. What
Yeah.
if I type you an email at the Outer Belt Podcast at
Well, that works
gmail.com?
too.
Does
It
it?
won't get
To
to
me,
her.
the word "the" is THEE.
EE. Biblical.
But I love the way
Thee,
Jerry
thou,
says
and
it.
thine.
Ay, ay, ay.
Thine Outer Belt.
There's also our website at Hyfield Trucking. That's HYFIELD trucking.com. You can send forms. You can do live chat Monday through Friday. Again, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Typically, it's me. Jerry helps me out there.
I know
If you want a live chat, I've been live chatting with some people. It's
you
pretty cool
live
feat-
chat.
Well, yeah, they're on our website. They ask a question. It comes right now. And if I'm not on a phone call, I'll live chat you right back. And I'll live chat you. And then we'll have it's kind of like a Facebook Messenger or texting.
I have
It's
to
really
te-
cool.
I'm gonna have to test you on this.
Yeah.
Real quick, I know we're wrapping up and we're about to go. Hit a like and subscribe if you enjoy what you have. What we're saying. If you hate what we're saying, hit that thumbs down. Make sure we know that you don't like it. So thumbs down and then tell us everything you hate about it in the comments.
Yes.
It still helps us. But we do want to hear what you have to say. If you have any topics you want us to talk about, anything you want us to discuss, by all means, throw it out there at the email or in the comments, or call us and just call Melissa and be like, hey, I'm not really interested in driving right now, but I would like to hear y'all talk about the great Muppet and Lucasfilm
There you go.
challenge.
Yeah. I like tonight's topic. I thought it was great.
I think we should talk about the difference in Sesame Street and the Muppets.
We should.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
should. Next time on the Outer Belt,
yes, but real
Brought to you
quick,
by the
our
letter.
Muppets, our Sesame Street characters, actually Muppets.
and is Eric allergic to them? So here's a question for you.
That's the question.
That is the question.
Yeah.
Let me ask you real quick. We have to go. We're out of time. We
We are out of
really
time.
are. But the audience
Yeah.
needs to know
They do need to know.
how is Jerry doing?
I heard your
Well,
lid was found.
we heard yesterday or last week. We heard about the great collapse of 2025.
We Vince found evidence of the crime scene.
I
as
did.
he
I got those
said.
pictures.
I did find evidence of the scene of the crime. Yeah,
It looked like a lot of
yeah.
coffee
A lot of coffee.
Yeah,
in the
lot of
frozen
coffee.
ice.
I'm
We-
doing
It's iced
good.
coffee.
We did find your lid.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be brought here to you tonight. Unfortunately, it was left in the dish drain.
It was.
At least it's clean.
It's cleaned. Yeah.
Thank you.
Heather
May not
washed it
be
for you.
in-
I was going to say you,
You
could
mean,
just
September?
leave it in the truck
We could.
that I'm getting ready to.
We can mail it to you.
Yeah, we could also
At-
chip pack it to you.
we can that's good. I would say we can mail it at theouterbeltpodcast.com, but I don't know that it would make it.
I don't think it would.
Probably not.
Probably not.
No.
But overall, you're doing good.
Yeah, I'm
Healing up.
still a little sore, but
Yeah.
I'm good.
moving a
Okay.
little slow, or like no, it's
No, that's good. It's just sitting in certain positions, tailbone still hurts.
Did you
Yeah,
at least
that-
have someone at home helping you out and making sure you were comfortable during the time?
That first day,
That first day.
Don was nice enough to get my dinner and stuff. After that, it was you're on your own.
You're on your own.
So
You'll heal faster if you move.
It's true. It's true. Well, if it hurts to sit, stand, do some work.
I wish I had a standing desk. Hint, hint.
Can we get
Well,
a 2
if
for
you
one?
go work for FIDA, they actually have standing
They do
desks
have
at
standing
their
desk at
offices.
FIDA,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
They do.
FIDA, call me.
Yeah.
It's been so great hanging out with y'all. Appreciate. I love our group therapy sessions. Interesting news that's happening. It's
Yeah.
always exciting to see things turning in our world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Until next time, stay safe. Make good decisions.
Don't leave money on the table.
And keep those wheels a turning.
Bye.
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 Bye.